Hello, and welcome to Archives and Records Simplified. These videos are aimed at people looking for basic knowledge about archives and records management, although at times I will also touch slightly on information and library science. These videos are designed to provide bite-sized chunks, which means that almost every video will be less than 15 minutes. These videos are honestly for everyone, and comments and suggestions are always more than welcome. About me, Sean McMillan. I'm an archivist based in London, and you can learn more about me via my LinkedIn profile, to which there is a link posted below. And I'll also post a transcript and notes also if you struggle at any point to understand my accent. And lastly, if you enjoy these videos, I would be extremely grateful if you could kindly like, subscribe and share. Thanks again. Okay, some recommended short courses. Okay, so one of my previous videos talked about common skills for archivists, and I know that one of the big dilemmas people often face is how do you sort of get experience without experience? And I would say, aside from volunteering, one really useful way to build up your CV is to undertake short courses. I've personally undertaken several. There's various suppliers, including FutureLearn, EDX, Coursera, Ademi, and various institutions that offer their own individual courses. Just to be clear here, this video is going to be about short courses in particular. I'm not going to be talking about master's programs, although I might do a separate video on that, and I have reviewed my own masters, which I recommend. And lastly, I'd also say that other courses do exist that are not in this video, and there are probably quite a lot in the area of webinars that are definitely worth looking out for. And lastly, although it's not bullet pointed, I would say some of these courses are free, some of them cost money to enroll, and some of them the content is free, but you can pay more for a certificate. So there's a sort of wide range of options here. Okay, so the DPC Novice to Know-How course. So this course is provided by the Digital Preservation Coalition, or the DPC, and as the name might suggest, the Digital Preservation Coalition are largely concerned with, as you would have guessed, digital preservation. This course provides skills and confidence required to implement a simple and proactive digital preservation workflow within an organisation. This course takes about 2 days to complete, but you can complete it over a longer period. I think I did it over the course of a week. When I did the course, it was free, but I do remember that spots are limited. If you find that you're unable to enroll in the course, or that spots have dried up, then one thing I would generally recommend is just generally keep an eye on the DPC's website and the emails they post in the various list servers, etc. They always seem to do something like this that's highly relevant and highly topical. And if you're interested in digital preservation, then the DPC are generally a very good place to start. One of the things I really liked about this course was the sort of different types of content they had. So for example, they had videos, they had tests, they had text-based content. Like, you really got a diversity. And as I say, for my experience of undertaking different courses, I thought the sort of structure and interactivity of this course was among the best I've did. So it's highly recommended, and I think everyone else I know that's done it has also really enjoyed it also. The University of London Digital Preservation Training Programme. So this one is provided by the University of London, and it currently costs about £200. I need to be totally honest and say that that's actually a bargain. I enrolled in this course last year, the year before, and when I enrolled in it, I think it was about 400 or 500, which for some, if for most people that's a month's rent, unless you live in London, and it's probably a week's rent. But so to get it currently for 200, that's a lot cheaper than it used to be, and actually that's quite rare. My experience is that the trend tends to go the other way. Often you tend to find, especially with the master's courses, if anything, the courses are getting more and more expensive. This one has sort of went down, and this one's a bit cheaper than it was, so I definitely highly recommend that. It covers the sort of basic definition of digital preservation. It covers approaches, the OAIS model, file formats, tool storage, metadata, accessibility, legal issues, and user communities. And it takes about 3 to 5 days to complete. But I would say for the length of time it takes to complete, it really does cover a lot of content. And although, and similar to the DPC Novice to Know-How, you do get a longer period of time than 3 to 5 days to complete it. I think I did mine's over a year, so I think I did one module a month for about 10 months, and that worked really well for me. So as I say, that's another one that I did, and I highly recommend it. It will definitely give you a really good insight to digital preservation. And one thing I would say is that if you've not did the masters at one of the universities, or you've maybe graduated more than 5 years ago, I really think this course is really good for sort of getting your knowledge as up to date as possible. Okay, so FutureLearn, Early Modern Scottish Paleography. So this course is provided by the University of Glasgow via FutureLearn. I haven't undertaken this particular course, but I did do one in person at the University of Glasgow when I was an MSc student. There was the option to do this course electively in addition to your other classes, and I have to say I found it really useful. One thing I would say is if you're, if you're not really particularly likely to be working with early modern Scottish records and you're thinking that this isn't relevant. One thing I would say is that the basics of paleography, as far as I understand it, are largely transferable. So even although you might never come across, some archives from the era of Robert the Bruce or William Wallace, the methodology and the logic and the way that you would try to understand and transcribe those records, I think, are largely transferable to other collections. So, as I say, even if you don't think you'll ever deal with these type of records, you might learn something about the general process, and that in itself can be very useful. One thing I would say about this course is it's got really good reviews. I think every course that I'm mentioning in this presentation has really good reviews generally, but this one gets mentioned several times. With FutureLearn, there's often the opportunity to upgrade and gain a certificate. So that's actually one of the really good things about the FutureLearn sort of system, is that you can join the course for free and you can get access to the content, and then you have the option afterwards to upgrade and gain a certificate. So as I say, that's one course that I would thoroughly recommend if you're interested in learning more about paleography. Okay, another one from FutureLearn. This is the museum as a site for learning. So this is one I've recently completed, although I've still to upgrade, which I think I'll probably do early next week. And again, this is provided by the University of Glasgow. I'm currently enrolled in this, and again, I'm really enjoying it. And it covers quite a broad range of topics relating to museums. So it's quite sort of entry level, and it covers the purposes of museums, the things you can do to meet the needs of visitors, the sort of decisions conservators make, and there's also an opportunity to design a mini exhibition. One of the great things about this course is they tell you about how exhibitions are functioned, about how people name items and the sort of process in that, and it's quite good. One of the reasons I think this is particularly relevant, especially if you're an archivist, is that often you can end up working in a variety of settings, and you will occasionally see a lot of archivist roles based in museums. For example, there was one currently advertised, I think, a few weeks ago at the Garden Museum, for example. So having an understanding of that sort of institution, it's definitely transferable and it's worth looking at. One of the other things I really liked about this course so far is they've indicated ways that museums can make themselves maybe more accessible. So this might be by maybe incorporating things like sign language into certain exhibitions, or things they can do for blind people, or things they can do for people with disabilities. I think that's really important, and I think that's definitely a topic that I think is growing in the sort of heritage and information sector more generally, and I'm glad that they covered it. Okay, so Ademi GDPR. So Udemy, I think, probably doesn't get the same sort of recognition as other courses, because the content in the courses are often provided by individuals more so than universities or institutions. So for example, the previous course I showed you at FutureLearn, that was made available by the University of Glasgow, whereas the GDPR course I did in Udemy was provided by an individual. One thing I would say though, and I think one of the really good functions about this site, is that the courses are generally rated and the teachers can be researched. So for example, people can leave reviews of the course, and if the course has got something like 4,500 reviews and the majority of them are 4-star plus, then you can usually gauge that the content's semi-relevant. You can also research the teachers, and I found that when I was doing this course, I think the teacher in this course, I think it was a man called Robert Sullivan, had from what I could find, quite a solid background in the subject. I really enjoyed this course. It gave me a sort of basic introduction to GDPR. I undertook it in 2018. I felt the course was really well structured, informative, and it was broken up into short videos. One of the good things about Ademi is that some of the courses do tend to be a bit cheaper. I think sometimes you can get relatively well reviewed courses for less than £10 or £15. I think the certificate for FutureLearn can sometimes be more than 40, so it's definitely something worth looking at. As I say, it's maybe not going to hold the same weight in a job CV compared to something from FutureLearn if it comes from an institution or a university, But if you're looking to get a sort of grasp of a topic, then I personally recommend it. Okay, so EDX CS50 Introduction to Computer Science. So this course is provided by Harvard. It's free to enroll, but you have the option to pay for an upgrade where you undertake an exam and you can gain a certificate. And this course introduces you to coding with C, HTML, Python, and essentially just the basics of computer science. It's quite intensive and it includes various technical challenges. I think if I remember correctly, EDX gives you an estimate of how long course you should take. FutureLearn do the exact same thing. And I think for this one, I think you're looking at 20 to 30 hours a week for about 8 weeks. So yeah, it's relatively intensive. I personally enjoyed this course, but it does require a lot of work and concentration. I tended to browse through the modules just to get an overview of the content, but I never paid for the exam. I largely just audited it. I think that this is a sort of course, if perhaps you're on furlough or you've got a lot of time in your hands, I would look into it. I would say, it does have a lot of relevant content. If you have a real interest in digital preservation or digital technologies, I think undertaking a course like this can maybe just help you understand digital technologies a little bit better, especially in the sort of way that bytes and bits work and how sort of binary systems work. So as I say, it's a really good course for sort of gaining a basic understanding of computer science, and you could really go at it as well. I mean, you could upgrade, you could do the exams, and if you really wanted to, you could put in the hours and get a certificate at the end of it, which I think would be well received. Okay, and just a few others that I've not covered. So the first one is Prince 2/Agile. This relates to project management. Again, I know a few people that have undertaken this. Apparently, it's highly recommended. There's the BCS GDPR certification. Obviously, I think this is pretty much self-explanatory. It's a formal certification that recognises your GDPR skills. FutureLearn, this is one I'm quite interested in. They are currently offering a course on understanding diversity and inclusion. I believe this is provided by Purdue University. I've heard a lot of really good things about this course, and to be honest with you, it's a topic which is quite thankfully being discussed more in the archive sector. And I think that this is the only type of its course on this presentation, and I think it's definitely something worth looking at. It's on my list of a number of courses that I want to undertake, and a lot of the people that I know have undertaken it have said they found it quite useful. EDX, Introduction to Digital Humanities, that's another one that's on my list that looks at the sort of digital environment when working with the humanities, as the title suggests, and again, I've heard very good things about that. And lastly, this was one that came up in my research a couple of times, and I have to admit that I'm a little bit hazy entirely on what it is, but I did know that quite a few other people seem to have undertaken it and enjoyed it. And this is a course offered by the International Council of Archives on understanding and using the Universal Declaration on Archives. As far as I know, the declaration originated around about 2011, and it's a mechanism for improving understanding and awareness of archives among the public generally and key decision makers. It's seen as a sort of statement on the relevance of archives in modern society. So, as I say, I've heard a lot of very good things about that, but I'm still a bit hazy on what that covers, so that's probably an indication that I should undertake the course myself. And very finally, there are some references and links to each course, and each reference corresponds to each course in order. And I guess just lastly, I would just reiterate that this slide is based on my own experiences and my own interests. I wouldn't highly recommend any course that you really didn't want to undertake. Obviously, research each course yourself before you commit to it. Think about whether it's relevant to you and your career. As I say, there are many other courses that are out there, and there are also a number of webinars that I have not covered here. I really do think this is probably the tip of the iceberg, but hopefully you've maybe found a few things that are relevant to you. And of course, if there's any really obvious ones you feel that I've missed out, feel more than free to comment or contact me directly. It'd be really interesting to learn about them. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and thanks again for watching. And if you enjoy these videos, I would be extremely grateful if you could like, subscribe and share. And also just to remind you that I would be absolutely delighted to take any requests for future videos also.